Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here today. It's an exciting opportunity, and we're happy to be here. My name is Tom Geeky, and I'm working with Zenergy Recruitment. I'm the principal in our contract, temporary, and interim division. So I just thought I'd just take a little bit of time out to introduce Zenergy. We're a proud corporate partner of AIHS, and we're passionate about continuing and promoting health, safety and wellbeing within the community and also within the larger workspace. I don't think there's been a time that wellbeing has probably been more prominent and front of mind across the community. And as we all know, we spend more time at work than we do at home. So if we get those three elements right, then hopefully we can take that home. And obviously many of us are working from home at the moment, so there's a strong crossover. Zenergy is a business. We've been recruiting within the APAC region for the past 15 years, solely within work health and safety, and that's allowed us to build strong and long-lasting relationships across the industry. We've been very fortunate in that time to work with some incredible individuals and also work alongside and partner with the AIHS. So today is a presentation, and I'll just introduce our presenters very briefly. So we have Alex Bertram from BHP. Alex will be speaking first. Second will be Louise Raymond and Katie Moore from Jacobs. Luke Bisson from HSE Global will then be the third. And fourth will be Gavin Campbell from Ventis. So I'd probably like to just hand over now to Alex. Now, just as an overview, Alex will aim to speak for about 10 minutes or present for 10 minutes. And then we'll have a short 5-minute period there for which questions and answers can be provided. So Alex, if you'd like to take over.
Excellent. No, thanks, Tom. Just check you can hear me and see my screen okay?
Yep.
Excellent. So thanks for the introduction, and really excited to be here and post being a finalist in the AIHS awards earlier this year. It's great to have this opportunity to share what we're doing for frontline safety with the group here. So thanks for the opportunity. So my name's Alex Bertram. I work for BHP as the manager of digital operations for our South-Flank operation as a part of our iron ore business. And also look after a product that we've developed inside BHP called Dash Tools, which enables our frontline people to do work outside of the line of fire. So strong safety focus. I'll just give a little bit of context around the problem that we're addressing, and it's really fatalities in the workplace. So a big portion of our workforce in mining. In the load and haul space, so in the core operations of a mine where you have shovels and trucks and drills and heavy mobile equipment moving around. Around 2/3 of our frontline workforce are operators, so people that drive those machines and operate that equipment, and another third are maintainers, mechanics, auto electricians, and mechanical fitters that look after that equipment in the field. So they're quite a large portion of our workforce. We've seen great improvements in safety outcomes with the introduction of things like autonomous haulage at our Jimblebar operation in West Australian Iron Ore. We've seen over an 80% reduction in potential level 4, so potential single fatality incidents. Since introducing a fully autonomous fleet. So technology playing a really key role in enabling awesome safety outcomes through eliminating risk. But we haven't seen the same focus from the industry and our partners on maintainers and mechanics. And the work that they do is some of the highest risk work in our industry, particularly when you start looking at something like live work. And I'll explain what live work is. Live work is where you're doing any work on a piece of equipment while it's still energized. So the key's on or the engine's on. In most cases, when you're doing mechanical work on a machine, you'll have it isolated completely. So you'd have all of the energy removed. You'd have your lock and tag on the machine, and there's no chance of the machine moving. So you're not exposed to stored energy or entanglement and crush, those sorts of things that are fatality risks for our maintainers. However, for diagnostic work, so where you need to test the operation of a machine, you'll find that you have to have the machine powered on. And a lot of that work requires a maintainer to work within the footprint of the machine while there's still energy there. What you can see on the screen here is an example of a live work task. So on the left, the mechanic is measuring the movement in the steering assembly underneath that wheel. The wheel's about twice his height in this case, and he's underneath it while the machine's operating. The operator then has to move the wheel and to move the steering wheel, to move the wheel of the truck, to then show how much movement there is in that assembly. And that wears over time. So you're trying to see how much wear there is if you need to do any sort of preventative maintenance work. The challenge with that work is the maintainer is sitting underneath that wheel that's twice his or her height. And it's a power steering system as well. So if the operator who can't see the maintainer while they're doing this work, if the operator turns the wheel too far, then you've got risk of entanglement and crush, which does have a potential outcome, or a plausible outcome from that is a single fatality event. And that's something we're looking to eliminate. With the work we've done on Dash, we initially looked across the industry to see, are there any sustainable solutions here where we don't need to go and build something? That's not the business BHP is typically in, of building products like this. But we found that there wasn't, and we couldn't motivate others to build something. So we did decide to go ahead and do that ourselves. That the way we solve the problem of live work is by putting sensors in harm's way, not people. So both existing sensors on the machine, a lot of machines, particularly autonomous machines, have a high degree of sensing on them already. So pressure transducers, temperature sensors, those sorts of things. And we simply put that in the hands of the maintainers in the field and make it really, really easy for them to access that data. We also add additional sensors onto the machine. So where there's live work tasks, where there's a potential fatality outcome, we add a sensor if it's required. So fairly straightforward. How we got here, and this is going back about 18 months now, we got together with hardware engineers, software engineers, mechanical fitters and sparkies, and together came up with an idea of a solution on a whiteboard. 6 weeks after that idea was put together on a whiteboard with folk that both had experience in the problem and how we could potentially solve it, we demonstrated at small scale. You can see on the tiny little excavator there that we could put sensors in harm's way, not people, and diagnose faults. 8 weeks after that, we had a proof of concept on a 400-ton, very large excavator in the field. Talking about 14 weeks from a standing start to having a prototype proof of concept out in the field, building trust with our frontline teams that we could change work and eliminate live work, which is a pace that you don't normally see in the industry that we work in. But given we're motivated by the safety case, we worked at that speed. Scaling from there is a different challenge. So we're at a point now where across BHP, for some of our Liebherr excavators, also our Komatsu haul trucks, and progressively, all of our different machine models will have kits available for our maintenance technicians to install on site themselves. We're then working with world-leading OEMs like Komatsu, Epiroc, and Liebherr to make Dash available as a local option, so it can be installed on machines before they come to site. And from there, with some of our OEMs, having Dash available as a factory option that's potentially available to our peers in industry as well. That's one point I just wanted to make as I wrap up. This is a whole of industry challenge, and we were really excited to have Rio Tinto and Newmont together with BHP and all of the major original equipment manufacturers, Caterpillar, Epiroc, Liebherr and Komatsu, together at our South Flank operation in BHP 2 weeks ago, looking at Dash in action and engaging with our frontline teams around how we can change work to eliminate live work. And we're seeing a strong response both from our OEMs looking to work with us to adopt this method of work that we've developed inside BHP and working with some of our partners across the industry more broadly. We're all familiar now, I think, with QR codes. I mean, in COVID times, maybe pre-COVID, it was something that a lot of us didn't know how to use. But if anyone wants to, you're welcome to try Dash on your mobile device. If anyone would like to, I'll maybe leave that up on the screen as we move across into the Q&A. Over to you, Tom.
Just give me 1 minute. Thanks very much, Alex. That was brilliant. Just looking at the Q&A panel, does anyone have a question they'd like to pose towards Alex, potentially off the panel there, or? We've got 2 minutes left. Alex, if you just go back a screen there, I found that quite interesting. Looking at working with third parties and partners internally, how's Dash been received, and how's the workforce seen it from I suppose taking up technology in companies can somewhat throw some people. So how have you found it?
Yeah, sure. I'll maybe on the inside BHP, I'll talk about that just briefly. Earlier this year, we had our Chief Technical Officer, Laura Tyler, who reports to BHP CEO, up at site. And she wanted to engage with our frontline teams around how technologies help them with their work. And we decided to demonstrate Dash on a Liebherr 9400 excavator. We had two mechanical fitters, Blake and Brandon, out at the machine, and they demonstrated Dash doing a slew ring deflection test, which is where a maintainer would typically stand on a stool underneath the machine, and look at the measurement on a micrometer while the operator is pushing the bucket of the excavator into the ground, lifting a 400 or 600 or 800 ton machine up onto its hind legs, which is quite as someone who doesn't see this type of work often, it's a fairly confronting thing to see, because you struggle to understand how that's the way we do things. So Blake and Brandon demonstrated or staged, here's how we used to do it, and showed Laura how we use it with Dash. And Laura made the comment to the team that normally when she engages with frontline people in our operations about technology, there's complaints about Wi-Fi at camp and the video conferencing not working, and all the usual kind of complaints that you do get. But she was pleasantly surprised to see the team excited about this, and she asked them why. And Brandon, fitter covered in grease, he'd been doing real work, unlike shiny asses like me. He responded by saying, "Great, because we don't have to muck around with all of the paperwork and dragging our supervisor out to sign off on the risk assessment, because the risk profile is low enough. We just need to do a take 5. So save a whole bunch of time, can just get to work. And it's great because I can sit in the cab of the machine in the aircon, or in my light vehicle in the aircon. Excellent. It's great. We like it because of that." Laura responded by saying, I think what you're meant to say is it's about safety and productivity. And that got a bit of a chuckle. But Brandon leant back and said, "Nah, it's about the aircon." So what we found from that exercise, and with our frontline teams, we really need to be making their jobs easier. These are people that are doing, they're up at 4:35 in the morning, to then do a 12 to 14 hour shift for a week or two straight. And if we're not making their lives easier while also reducing the risk profile of the work, then technology, it just doesn't get adopted. So that's been really critical for us.
Just got another question here for you, Alex. Are you utilising this tech in remote work locations, such as unstaffed locations?
It's a good. That's a good question. So at the moment, the focus is really on where there's machines that people are working on, where they're exposed to potential fatality risk. That's our number one focus. There's opportunity, and what we're finding now by getting these modern tools into the hands of our frontline teams, they're starting to come up with ideas like, oh, why do we need to drive out to the machine and see what it's doing to do slurring deflection? Can't I just avoid driving through the pit and get on the radio to the operator and look at what's going on? So we're starting to see our frontline teams come up with ideas around how they can simplify work or even remove tasks that they no longer have to do, such as doing things by remote condition monitoring as opposed to having to drive out on the machine. So we've taken a bit of a different tack to many who, for this type of work, try to jump straight to, we'll have a remote operations center and we'll watch the health of machines. There's still a lot of knack to this sort of work to understand if a machine's working as it should be and how to diagnose faults that you simply today, you have to have the people with those capabilities and knowledge of machines. But over time, as we see this technology getting adopted by our frontline, I think we'll see more and more opportunity to do work more remotely.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks so much for that, Alex. Yeah, very informative. I think we're just about on time for our next presentation. So thanks again.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks to the Australian Institute of Health and Safety for the nomination for the awards and for providing this platform to share what we're doing. Thanks very much.
No problem. So moving on now, we have Louise Raymond and Katie Moore from Jacobs. So I'll just pass over to Louise and Katie, and I'll let you take it away.
Great, thanks so much, Tom. Hi everyone, I am Katie Moore. I am the HSE strategy lead at Jacobs, and I am project manager of 1 Million Lives that we're going to talk about today. I'm presenting today with my colleague Louise, who is going to kick things off for us. Over to you, Louise.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. I just wanted to check to see if you can see my screen. So it should be on a presentation, so start a conversation and quite possibly change a life.
It's all fine.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Oops, wrong one. Alrighty, so my name is Louise Raymond. I am the HSC Systems and Program Coordinator for Asia Pacific, and just wanted to speak to you today about 1 Million Lives. So thank you very much for your time and interest today in the finalist presentations for the Australian Workplace Health and Safety Awards. So just to provide a little bit of context, the World Health Organization conducted a survey in October 2020 over 130 countries. And what that survey found is that COVID has disrupted or halted critical mental health services in about 93% of countries worldwide. So these services include things like counselling, critical harm reduction services, emergency interventions, access to medication, and school and workplace mental health services. So meanwhile, COVID's been increasing the demand for mental health services. So bereavement, isolation, loss of income, and fear are triggering mental health conditions or exacerbating existing ones. So many people may be facing increased levels of alcohol and drug use, insomnia and anxiety. And 89% of countries reported in the survey that mental health and psychological support is part of their national COVID-19 response plans, but only 17% of these countries have full additional funding for covering these activities. So 1 Million Lives is a free mental health check-in tool that's available online. While most mental health assessments available online measure pathology or whether people have symptoms of sickness, there's others that measure thinking styles or behaviours associated with how well people bounce back from challenges, so around resilience. The 1 Million Lives check-in tool is designed to recognise that mental health isn't a binary issue and that assessing for symptoms of a mental health issue alone will not add value to the majority of people. So to use a metaphor, instead of a flashlight identifying a mental health, a flashlight identification of mental health functioning, 1 Million Lives turns on a floodlight and it gives a wider visibility of mental health. You'll see on this slide, there's 3 examples of questions that are asked within the tool, and there's also a sample of the check-in results on the right-hand side. So 1 Million Lives isn't intended to diagnose. It was developed in-house at Jacobs by a group of passionate employees with expert consultation with Perth-based psychologist Peter Slocum. It incorporates the K10 scale, which is a globally recognised psychological screening tool. It measures early warning signs or risk factors such as poor quality sleep, difficulty bouncing back from challenges, a history of poor mental health, or poor lifestyle factors such as alcohol use and minimal exercise. So these questions will help educate and direct a proactive plan forward. It also measures protective or proactive factors. So for participants who aren't distressed or aren't experiencing any symptoms of a mental health disorder, there are still behaviours and personality traits that, if identified, can be positively strengthened. So for example, if people have extremely high standards for themselves or perfectionist tendencies, low social engagement or an avoidance of difficult thoughts or unintentional high social media use. Yep, that's me. 1 Million Lives can help them understand the potential downsides and identify good mental health goals. So at Jacobs, we believe that it's time to look beyond the boundaries of our own organisation. So with the launch of 1 Million Lives, we've turned to our clients and our partners and even our competitors to invite them to help us lead a movement to track and change our mental health. With 1 Million Lives, we want to put mental health support in the hands of everyone. We want to offer individuals a free and accessible way to check and understand their mental health and generate real-time, personalised solutions. Most importantly, we want to break down the barriers that hinder honest conversations about mental health, and we want to encourage an open culture of support. So one example is first developed to support our Jacobs colleagues through the early days of COVID-19, our weekly global mental health resiliency calls explored resiliency strategies for topics such as parenting and working from home, staying healthy in lockdown, sleep and isolation. So taking lessons from the first series of calls, we've evolved the program to align with the 1 Million Lives assessment, which offers participants the opportunity to better understand their results and how to improve them. And I'll just hand over to Katie.
Right, great, thanks Louise. So on this slide, we'll see some of the additional support materials we've developed to complement the tool. So like Louise said, we have a website with mental health resources that allow people to explore their results further, understand them better, and it also provides tips and strategies for what to do in response to it. To roll out the campaign, we've developed a suite of campaign resources that include things like posters, a social media guide, and images to use for people to share the tool with their friends and family. And we've also engaged in things like speaking engagements across the world and a thought leadership paper as well. Next slide, thanks Louise. So to date, we've had over 14,000 check-ins. We've had 22,000 engagements on social media. You can see some of these on the right-hand side there. And we've also had over 50,000 engagements or views of the resiliency program that Louise spoke about. If you could click on, Louise. But sort of what is most successful in our eyes as a team and what we take most heart in is the personal stories that have been shared with us from people who have used the tool. You can see some of these on the screen here. We've also, had stories that 1 Million Lives has been a catalyst for people to seek further help, and that the results have been a way for them to articulate how they were feeling in a way they hadn't been able to before. So even, just one of these stories is reason enough for us to keep going with the campaign. Next slide. Great. So looking at some of the data and results we're getting from it, these are some of the headlines on analysis done on Jacobs check-ins earlier this year. What's really encouraging is the fact that men are equally likely to check in as women. This is actually atypical, as traditionally men don't typically, they're reluctant to engage in mental health supports. So we think that the privacy of our tool, that it's digital and online, is really making a difference in this space. We can see that our younger cohort is struggling most across all those categories assessed across the board, and they also lack the resiliency of the older generations to cope. Now, this is pretty in line or typical of wider mental health research, but what it does for us in having this data is allowing us to make targeted, informed decisions about our people in response. So for example, we're ensuring that our younger age groups are prioritized for returning to the office in those global locations starting to come back into work. We've also put in a mentoring program in place. Like Louise said, in our resiliency series, we have made targeted sessions focused on problem areas we're starting to see in the results, things like sleep, social support, things like that. And we're also starting to develop a clinical care team within Jacobs to help us really further understand these results better and make appropriate decisions in response. So next slide. So we're also jumping on the QR code bandwagon. So if you'd like to try the tool yourself, you can use the QR code or visit www.oml.world. We'd like to just close out today to encourage you to check in yourself and to keep the conversation going. Part of this is about creating a ripple effect where we take the stigma out of mental health and talking about mental health. So please feel free to share this tool with everyone widely and keep the conversation going. And thanks, Tom. That's it from us.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks, Katie. We have one question here, and I hope I get this okay. So this is to you both. Does the app allow users to measure individuals' presence for custodial environments? So the example is the identification of psychological risk to prevent violence.
Okay. Louise, I might start and then you can chime in. So I'm just looking to make sure I understand fully. Is that, I think this is asking if it highlights risk factors within people for violent tendencies, in which case it doesn't do that. It is mainly focused around the K10, like we said, so depression and anxiety measures, as well as those factors around sleep, perfectionism, and that sort of thing. So again, we don't look to diagnose anything. It is more around highlighting potential areas that could be explored further with medical professional. Louise, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think you covered it really well, Katie. Yeah, so just it looks at the early warning signs or risk factors and the protective or the proactive factors. Yeah.
It does look at social support. So if we're looking to that wider of potentially people who might be in situations of violent situations that is impacting their mental health, again, we don't assess factors like that, but we do look at the social support network around people to see if they're getting kind of what they need from that situation in terms of improving their mental health.
And just another question here was for the data that you use, obviously, and collect, what happens to that?
It's all protected and anonymous. So when you sign up and create your account, there is no email, there is no name or anything attached. We take high-level demographic data so we can start to understand or do that analysis on different groups and like we said before, we were able to identify the younger generation was kind of having worse results, but in terms, there is no way to identify anyone to the data collected.
Okay. No, thank you for that. All right. Well, that's perfect timing. I think we're just about on to the third presentation. So thank you again, Louise and Katie.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So moving to our third presentation, we have Luke Biston from HSC Global. So Luke, if you'd like to take over, I'll step back.
It's Tom. All right, can we see that? Awesome. Okay, so look, just I suppose firstly, just a big thanks to the Institute of Health and Safety just for the nomination for the award. It was fantastic to see, and also just thanks to Zenergy as the sponsors, and Tom for your amazing hosting today. So quick introduction, my name is Luke Beeston. I'm the Director of Risk and Innovation for HSC Global and the Global Safety Index. So just a really quick about us, we're around 35 full-time consultants, growing pretty much every couple of months at the moment, and operating around Australia, New Zealand, and the United States is where we currently have offices. And we really do sort of delve into most aspects of safety, culture, mental health, and well-being. So I'm just going to talk briefly today just about GSI and some of its offerings and how it sort of works into businesses. But before I do that, let's just start with some context so I can get this working. Okay, so the first bit of context I really want to talk about is that leadership influences culture, culture drives behaviors, and behaviors are what give us results. So when we take that model and we flip it on its head, we look at the results that we have. And we talk about things such as, things people talk a lot about TRIFR and LTIFR. They often look at these output measures to determine the success of their business. If you go and look at annual reports, they're often full of things like TRIFR and lost time injury frequency numbers as the way that they're measuring their improvements towards safety. What we sort of look at though is when you flip that model on its head, you say that the results that an organization have are often driven by the behaviors that are demonstrated day in, day out. What are the choices that people make whenever they're doing a task? But those behaviors actually go a lot further than that. They're actually built around the culture. What's the accepted way of doing things within our organization? And ultimately that culture is being heavily influenced by the leadership. So we're not just talking about people who are effectively your C-suite of a business. This is anyone who could be people leaders or anyone that has any degree of influence within an organization, within people. So what we have is we look at these output measures, and what history has taught us is the absence of injury doesn't always mean the presence of safety. So when we see that the results are what the outputs are, we really need to take a step back and say, well, what are those critical input performance measures? And that was one of the main reasons why we introduced the Global Safety Index, is that the critical inputs into organizational results are leadership and culture. And you see lots of people, lots of organizations saying, hey, we've got great leaders and we've got a great culture. So we introduced the GSI, mainly, a lot of it built around one of these quotes, which is one of my personal favorites. We want to help organizations measure the fact that they say they've got good leadership and good culture, and then be able to then demonstrate and benchmark that. So I'll just talk briefly through some of the tools available, some of the innovation as we go. So here's the Global Safety Index, quick snapshot of some of the dashboard and some of the screens. I won't sort of really go through that in too much detail. You'll be able to jump on after and have a look. But let me just talk about what it is. So GSI was the first integrated leadership and culture measurement tool when it was introduced many, many years ago. So we started supporting organizations with the tool in 2012, but there was lots of development that happened before that. We've worked with some of the largest organizations across Australia, New Zealand, and around the world as part of this tool. We've had over 64,000 users and nearly 4 million data points to compare against. There's specific tools within the actual GSI platform. So we've got the SLI, which is around safety leadership measurement. We've got the SCI, which is around safety culture index. We've got the mental health index, and then we've got one HSC. So I'll just start through here with the SLI. So when we talk about safety leadership, leadership really is the single most important driver of organizational culture. It sets the cultural norms, the expectations that define what an organization is. So you need to understand how leadership impacts on performance. It's an essential piece. So the way that the Safety Leadership Index does this is it really measures through 7 key dimensions. So it takes individuals, they look at it and they say, hey, I'm going to go through, complete this and understand where I sit and where my skills and strengths are. What we can then also do is then take all of that information and tie it into the bench strength of an organization. So with what I mean by that is that when individuals sat there and done their SLI, right, they'll go in, they'll launch and they'll do it. Their manager will do it. They'll do a full 360 review of the individual. All of that information will then feed into the organization's results around their leadership. And what it does is it gives you an opportunity. So for example, if we look at that bench strength chart there, when an organization goes out and measures their leadership, they can sit there and say, well, hey, we've got 27% of our leaders are high or strong performers. And you'll actually know who they are. And then you've got the opportunity is when you look at the other side of that donut chart is that we've got around 42% who really need some support and development. So the opportunity is now we know who our high performers are and those who need support is to connect them together. You can actually create a more sustainable model around improving the way that people operate within a business. And that effectively will make it a safer place to be. So the SLI also provides fully automated comprehensive reports to the participants, gives them action plans and gives them really sort of granular information to help them actually improve or sustain their performance. So if we go back to that model we started with, it really just helps us turn the dial on leadership slightly, which does improve our leadership and our culture. The Safety Culture Index, now over 82% of managers rate culture as the #1 barrier to achieving improved safety performance. So the Safety Culture Index provides an organizational view on culture. So the tool really just does what it says on the tin. It's designed to provide granular insights across all of your organization. So whether that's a few hundred people or a few 100,000, you can actually specifically see what's working and what's not working by mapping worker perception across these 9 key dimensions and 14 key drivers. And then when you're going through that, what you end up with is your organization's culture score. That culture score gives you ability to then start monitoring it going up or going down according to how the results are coming back in. But what you actually get on top of that is all the reporting information, which actually goes a lot deeper than what the actual culture tool does. Provides you a lot more information, helps you understand cause and effect. So what I mean by that is that cause and effect really helps focus where you're spending your time, your energy, and your resources. It's why, I suppose, it's when you understand where your resources need to go, and you understand what builds a personal appreciation of risk. It helps you really delve down into where you need to actually spend your time. So if we have a look at these charts here, when people have gone through, you might look at this rash map and say, well, initially we were going to start building some programs around building personal appreciation of risk because that's what we feel needs to be done. But then you can see that actually that's not really a challenge within an organization. One of the challenges is that the safety rules and procedures aren't good. So it helps start focusing where your strategy should be looking. And likewise on that other chart there, we might sit there and say, well, we think our communication is really good, but we're just not quite nailing it. As opposed to the whole communication being broken, you can clearly see there's just one area there that might just need an additional piece of information or an additional piece of work to help know where to turn the dial. There's a lot to unpack really within the SCI, and we don't really have time to do that today, but there will be information you can get. What also you can do within the platform is benchmark your performance. So this is all about, quite simply, comparing your input and your output performance. So this is about understanding how do we compare to other people, not just within our industry, but outside of our industry. What about in different countries? Like, is our performance within our safety, our leadership, our culture, is it actually comparable with other organizations? Are we best practice globally? Are we best practice in general, or are we only just best practice in our own kind of wheelhouse? So it really provides that ability to go. And like we talked about, we've got 4 million data points. So you can actually select how you're going to benchmark across any of those sorts of points there as well. So that's really around the leadership and the culture piece. I suppose the other one I just want to really touch on now is really mental health. So it's really easy with mental health to sit there and say, well, we've got a leadership tool and we've got a culture tool. So why don't we just add a few well-placed questions in those? But from our research with a number of registered psychologists, research academics, we realized that it needed to be bigger than that. we talk about leadership and culture, and when we talk leadership, let's talk about how we actually improve the well-being of people as well within our culture and our leaders. So the mental health index has been developed. And it's just two quotes here which came up on the screen, one from the World Health Organization around the promotion of mental health, but also one from the project lead of ISO 45003, which talks about the responsibilities that we have as organizations to be able to look out for the psychological health of our workers. So what the mental health does, it's really about helping organizations understand their mental health literacy. So when we talk mental health literacy, we're talking about the level of awareness and responsiveness that there is to people who are experiencing mental health problems. So in other words, it's basically how comfortable are our people in putting their hands up to ask for help, and how effective are we as an organization in offering that help as well. And that's built around 4 dimensions and again, 7 key drivers. This is around help-seeking behaviors, help offering behaviors, and then understanding specifically how we can improve the overall mental health in our business. A byproduct of doing this is that it also helps us understand how effective our mental health programs are. You may go out and roll out lots of different programs to help improve the well-being of your people, but unless you can measure it, how do you know it's going to be effective? And that's what Mental Health Index brings to the table in that space as well. So I suppose in summary around the GSI platform, just a few, I suppose, high-level features around how we've been supporting organizations over the last maybe 10 years, is that it provides specific insights, like we said, to leadership, culture, and mental health. You can add your own demographic and custom questions around those core survey components. It is accessible from any device. So as long as you've got access either to a camera, an email, mobile phone for QR codes, links, you can access the actual survey. It's fully automated, comprehensive reporting, and they do provide granular insights. So if you're a big organization, 200,000 people, you could see what the culture would be like of a 4-person workshop up in Northern Karratha versus a site that's got 500 people on it. You've got dashboard, which provides you really easy viewing of results. So a real quick snapshot of input and outputs. And also then full comparison tools. So you can actually track each question to see how you're moving across the whole entire lens of what's being offered. There's also some good benchmarking across a number of all these measures that we talked about as well. It also helps demonstrate alignment, which is another part of it. It's just by naturally running things like your leadership and improving your culture and your mental health index, you're actually helping demonstrate alignment to ISO 45001 and also ISO 45003. So both the tools actually align into various sections of those standards as well. Before I stop and I finish up, I suppose the last thing I just want to talk about is an innovation that we've been working on, I suppose, for the last 12 months, which has been great, I know, for us as a business when we've got a lot of remote workers in different countries. And it's all built around, again, that mental health and connection piece around help seeking and help offering behaviors. This quote here from Dan Lucy is around the contact individuals have with their manager, the better they feel and the more committed they are to their health. And that 80% of workers would consider quitting their current position for a job that focused more on employee mental health. And that's where we came up with what was the WellBeing CheckIn app. So this isn't a tool to help diagnose as the great piece around the 100 million lives. This is about promotion of communication between people within a team. So it's about getting a well-being pulse of the organization, day in, day out, understanding the pre-start of the human being, of an individual. And it's all built around the mental health continuum, that it's okay to be in the red sometimes, and it's okay to be up in the green. So it helps support individuals with monitoring their own well-being, and it helps promote communication and help those help offering behaviors. So it's a real simple check-in tool. Just jump in, how you're feeling today. It's designed to be as simple as possible. It helps your proactive well-being as well. So you can actually go through and start measuring what you're doing as your own personal inputs to help improve your well-being. And also contains all of your information. So you get a dashboard in there as well, which helps you understand and provide some context around how you've been feeling day in, day out, week in, month out. But it also helps you see what else everyone else in your organization may be doing proactively to improve their mental health. And it provides real-time alerts. So quite simply, if someone is struggling, it will notify the manager straight away. The manager can connect to them. And if the manager can't get hold of them, it will also help them connect directly with their EAP provider or a crisis hotline as well as it's needed. So I'm going to stop. That was a lot of information. I appreciate it. It can be like drinking from a fire hose. So I'll stop for questions. But I've jumped on the QR bandwagon too. Tom?
Brilliant. All right, thanks for that, Luke. I think time-wise, we might be a bit short, but I've got one question here. Just for you, so if we go back to the data that we were talking about between leadership and identifying safety culture, when we look at an issue and identify an issue within an organisation, granted there'll be a lot of different variables playing, but what's the general turnaround from identifying the issue to then the cause and effect and seeing some form of turnaround internally and a change of the culture piece, and how then do we measure that? And we're pretty short for time, Luke. So,
to be honest, Tom, it's not one of those things which, hey, we've identified we've got some cultural challenges, then we can fix it overnight. What it does is it helps understand how you're going to develop your strategy to address those challenges.
Sure.
And often those strategies are built over a 12, 24-month period where you see step change. So a lot of organizations we've seen using it and then using it to develop their strategy over the period of 2 to 3 years, end up seeing anywhere of north of an 80% reduction in some of those lag behaviors.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Luke. That
awesome.
that was great. So
yeah,
the final presentation we have is from Gavin Campbell at Ventis. So I'll pass over to Gavin now, and Gavin will present, and then I'll be back on shortly. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I'm Gavin Campbell. I'm the Executive General Manager of Ventis Defence Business, and that means I've got 3,000 people reporting to me spread across the country, and we do everything from cleaning, catering, facilities management, firefighting, refueling. We remove snakes from defence bases, so we just do about everything we can. And we're really proud and delighted to be part of these Australian Institute of Health and Safety Awards. For us, we're not only concerned about the safety of our own 3,000 people, but we're equally concerned about the safety of the Australian Defence Force members we support. And the safety initiative that we put forward does that both. So I'm going to show you a short video, 3 minutes, that I think captures the whole story about our safety improvement journey. Thank you.
Now, can you see my the video?
Yeah, we can see that there. Phoebe.
Sorry.
Now it's just gone out.
Sorry, I just need to share my sound. Alrighty. Can you see it now?
Yep, we can. Yep.
Perfect. And let me know if you can't hear anything. But otherwise, Can you hear it?
Yes, sounds on. Thank you.
Perfect.
We first identified there was a better way to manage the difficult and onerous task of providing shore power cabling following a visit to the wharf in December 2018. 100-metre cable weighed 1 tonne.
It was taking 30 plus people over an hour to move one cable off the wharf. Whereas now the cable can be moved in minutes. The solution was developed over quite a few months, looking at various ways of handling cables, looking at different spool types, searching if there was other types of systems like that on the market, which there wasn't. So we basically started from a clean sheet of paper.
In developing the solution, Powerhouse staff had a series of meetings to discuss the risks involved with the cranage operations for shore power. The main focus is to protect Navy staff and Ventis staff in the application of shore power.
The benefits of this solution to Navy, it provides a storage solution for cables, it preserves the life expectancy of the cables from UV and mechanical damage whilst being on the wharf, it frees up also wharf space, and it has a wider applicability to Navy where they have these high voltage cables.
Cable spool will benefit Navy in a way that allows our personnel to be able to get off a ship when they come alongside from a long deployment and not having to use so many personnel and be so labour intensive to deploy and recover the cable.
I think that for us going forward, the cable spool innovation is fantastic, and there's a number of reasons for that. For us, it's going to reduce our manpower by up to 80%, creating a safe, efficient and effective workplace, which will allow us to do things concurrently, and that's on a wharf side. We all know that it gets quite busy. For us, there's nothing about this system for Navy going forward that is not going to be sensational.
Yeah, for us, it was a real story of collaboration with obviously the Australian Defence Force, but also an SME in one tight, a small company based in Western Australia. The other thing is that risk had been around for over 50 years. Defence people go away for 6 weeks, they get back, they want to go home to their family and see their family after 6 weeks, and they've got to go out and move. So we worked together and we solved that. And now it's not only being deployed in Australia to all the other bases. We've just got an inquiry from the US, because in the US Navy, they have the same problem. And we're hopeful of sending the same solution over to the US Navy, and we'll hope to actually spread it further. So it could be a worldwide solution to take a big risk out of bringing Navy ships to shore. So really proud of that. That's it, Tom. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that was brilliant. Thank you, Gavin. From a question, from an operational standpoint, the time saving, have you measured that and seen, you know, like we're talking about moving at 100 metres could take an hour, but across the board with one of those, I mean, what's the overall operational time save on it?
Yeah, it's massive. You think ships coming in and out, you know, 30 odd people we're using that. So as part of the business case, we did do a full analysis on the time saving. The ADF wanted that from us. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
We'll just say big.
It was big, yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Oh no, that's brilliant. Yeah, that was a great presentation, and thank you for that. I suppose leading into the closing sections of where we're sitting at the moment, from the participants and wider, there is a Q&A tab that you could utilise if you want to ask any presenters in specifics a question. Just identify them, and I'll be happy to help out there. Across the panel, do you have any questions for each other, or is there anyone that would like to ask a question?
I'll make an observation, because I enjoyed Luke's presentation, and I'm obviously a leader of a business, so you know I have to role model and do those roles to get the right culture and then the results. But I always think, and to tell everyone, leaders aren't perfect. We have lots of strengths, we lots of faults, so we need people around us too to help us actually be good leaders. So I think sometimes people expect leaders to be perfect. There's not too many perfect leaders I've ever met in my life. So you know, we're all in it together, and let's help our leaders be good leaders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well, we've just got someone come through and echoed what you said, Gavin. So there's positive affirmation in the group chat as well. So thank you for that. So we might wrap it up there, if that's okay. Again, just to sign off from my side. So thanks again to the AIHS for hosting, and also Zenergy Recruitment. We sponsor this award. So if you would like to get in touch or discuss any recruitment needs across the board, please feel free to reach out. Yeah, I hope everyone is well in these times. Appreciate that. It's an area that hopefully we can start to see the end of in the COVID pandemic, and we're all doing the right thing. So thanks again to the panelists for joining us here today, and wish everyone a good weekend and a great afternoon. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Been a pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you.
Thank you.